All right. So let's shift over from the pitching performances in the spring training to the hitting performances in spring training. And I got to say, there's some unlikely suspects that are giving me some encouragement. And it starts really with Jake Meyers. And I don't know whether it's because he's feeling optimism or feeling energized from being, that confidence that he's been given and being named the starting center fielder for this team. But Jake Meyers right now hitting .320 with a .469 on-base percentage and 1.149 OPS. And that ranks just behind of Mauricio Dubón. Mauricio Dubón has a 1.295 OPS right now. Those guys, Dubón versus Meyers, I think it's an interesting conversation because both of those guys are having a really nice Grapefruit League. One of those guys had a really good 2023 and contributed in the postseason, but the other guy is the one that's named to the starting center field position. Is Mauricio Dubón. I know he's considered not as prolific as a defender as Jake Meyers is, but is Mauricio Dubón, if he's continues to hit at this level, do you think he's going to put pressure on Joe Espada to use him more in the center field position or maybe in other places, especially considering that Jeremy Pena is still hitting, sub 250 right now in the Grapefruit League?
In tennis terms, I think it's on Jake Meyers' racket. I largely dismiss the spring stats because you can hit 900 in the spring, and if you go 1 for 12 to start the regular season, there's no reason to remember the guy who hit 900 in the spring. But good for Jake Meyers to, what percentage of Astros fans would have happily traded him for a bag of donuts in the offseason? And that can mean cake or yeast or the ones that you put on the bat in the on-deck circle. That he's been gifted the primary center field job. Where are the merits on this? And at least he's had the spring training to validate that decision. But when the lights go on and the results truly matter, well, what's he going to do? And how long will his runway be? But Jake Meyers is strictly an outfielder. So Joe Espada, from when he got the job and was first asked about it, stated, and I agree, that Mauricio Dubón is best suited for that super utility role. Dubón was outstanding for the Astros last season, but his OPS was 720. So, and it's not like he was a really good offensive player. He was really good relative to Dubón's track record in the major leagues and in manning the position very credibly, and frankly, a better defensive second baseman than Jose Altuve, while Altuve was out to start the season. And then when Meyers fell on his face, Dubón gave you a good center field play. Worth noting, Dubón's best 2 months at the plate were August and September. So if he found a new level, and that would carry over into the regular season, Meyers better perform. But I'm very curious in the overall scope on, is there a master plan for Dubón's playing time? It obviously does not include anything approaching regular play in center field, because the days that Jordan plays left, I don't want Dubón in there at Chas McCormick's expense, unless their 2024 performances shift. I'm thinking Dubón should start at least once per week at second base for Altuve, where Altuve gets the occasional day off and the occasional DH game. Season's basically 6 months, so let's call it 26 weeks. So I'm thinking Dubón should start once per week, which means Altuve is still playing 135 games at second base. That's a lot for a guy who turns 34 years old in May and only played 90 games last season. Shortstop, I'm not saying it should be an open competition, but Dubón's OPS was better than Jeremy Pena's last year. I don't think the defensive fall off is massive from Pena to Dubón. And again, I don't want to make too much of spring training stuff, and I think it makes sense to get Pena extra at bats, but that they're taking him to back fields to get extra swing time speaks to the fact that, well, it hasn't been this seamless transition, and whoa, he looks like Barry Larkin or Robin Yount with his newfound swing, and just the regular spring training workload is fine for Jeremy Pena. I think Dubón should be getting a start at shortstop at least once every couple of weeks, which means that Pena would be getting 145 starts at shortstop, but Dubón a little playing time there. Just the spot start in center field, and then the unfortunate reality, someone's probably going to get hurt at some point during the season. Last year, it was Altuve that gave Dubón a lot of playing time. Well, if it's not Altuve again, and knock on wood that it's not, it could be another position that where you plug another guy in, it opens a spot for Dubon because of his versatility. So I think unless Meyers absolutely flames, Dubon's just not going to get many starts at all at center field.
Yeah, it's nice to have Dubon, right? I mean, he gives you so much, flexibility. Just this spring, he's played center field, second base, shortstop, third base. They've even talked about maybe, getting Bregman a few more days of rest. I think he played like near 160 games, something crazy last year.
161.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. And then also, Abreu, he was a little overused, giving him some time to get some breaks over there. So Dubon's just a wonderful option to have here. And I'm with Charlie. You got to get him regular playing time at, not every day, but get him in the lineup once or twice a week so his skills don't diminish. And then the Jake Meyers thing, we look back at, remember Justin Dearden was the darling of spring training last year, and then that didn't really amount to much. We see that stuff happen every spring. So you can't get too high or low based off this stuff. But with Jake Meyers, I will say this, I have some friends that go to spring training every year in Florida, and they said last year, Jake Meyers was not about really being super friendly with the fans and interacting very much, but that was very different this year, that he was smiling and signing autographs and it just seemed to be in a better headspace altogether this year. So that kind of makes some sense if he did go see the psychologist and now he's performing better and it seems like he's kind of more involved and outward facing with the fans and interacting, having a better time. And let's be real, you're always in a better mood when you're performing better. I mean, Matt, you work so hard at it, and then when it doesn't go right, it can be really deflating. So when it is going well, you are going to be in a better mood, but that stuff kind of snowballs, and your confidence comes from repeated success. So hopefully Jake can keep doing that. Obviously, I don't think he can keep doing what he is doing here, but I think if he could just be a little above average center fielder for you, that would be huge, because he does have a lot of different tools he can bring to the ballpark. He doesn't cost you much money, and it's a long season. Some guys are going to get banged up, and you're going to need everybody you have on your roster. So I'm hoping they can swing the bat. The Jeremy Pena thing's got me worried a little bit, but I'm not too worried because they have Dubon. If for some reason Pena just can't get it together, you have a really good option to go to, and it's not like you just throw out Pena. You keep working with him, and hopefully he finds it again.
Yeah, their frontliners they find, their lineup is got to be fine, right? If you get 30 more games out of Jordan, you get 50 more games out of Altuve than you did last year. Tucker and Bregman obviously are going to be everyday players. Pena can't drop off much from where he was last year, and if he does, well, then Dubon can take the job. Abreu overall in 2023 was not a good player. He can't drop off much from where he was last year. So unless you have an unexpected decline from a key player, their offense is going to be stout. And as we've talked about before, I won't even mention his name again here. But at the very, very bottom of the order, you're going to be better, almost no matter who is there, batting ninth, even if it's Jake Meyers and people are still saying, hey, why is Jake Meyers playing so much? It's going to cycle back to the biggest question marks about the Astros are the pitching. Their offense, netted out very well last year, was too feast or famine-y and erratic-y, but bottom line, you're fifth in the league in scoring runs. Your offense is pretty good, and the Astros lineup has the potential to be really, really good. We haven't even mentioned Yainer Diaz.
Yeah, and I guess the only problem in looking at a Dubon for Pena as a solution there is neither guy walks. And really, you don't really gain much there. Dubon had a 309 on-base percentage last season, and that was in one of his better seasons. So he's just not a guy that's going to get on unless he's hitting his way on. So, but on-base percentage is better. So it is a slight improvement, but I don't know that you're improving on defense. Jeremy Pena is a very good defender. So it's imperative that Pena figures it out, and it is just weird. It's just weird that we're, I know we can't look too much into spring training games because it's such a small sample size, but him in organized play going back to last July, he hasn't even accidentally ran into a home run. So it is head scratching as I literally do that. And Charlie, you mentioned donuts. I don't know where you guys come out at, but I'm firmly on Team Shipley. If they're not a sponsor, but I really think that they should be. So I think
potential. I'm definitely on Team Cake Donut over Yeast.
Okay.
So your staple glazed is a pass for me.
Oh, wow. All right. Josh, you get the last
Different
word.
strokes, different folks.
Yeah. Donut preference. Josh, go.
I'm usually I like the glazed with the chocolate icing on top. That's one of my faves.
All right. Well, there you go. That's going to be it for another episode of Stone Cold Stros. It's in the books. Before we go, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of our friend and former colleague, Fred Faour. Fred was a sports radio icon in the city. We can't really tell the story of sports radio in Houston without mentioning a few people. Charlie's one of those guys, and Fred's another. He and AJ Hoffman owned afternoons in the city for a large chunk of time. I was lucky enough to work with him, as was Josh, for several years. And what I can say is he really did his best to make sure that those around him were elevated. So, Fred, just want to say we will miss you. Sports to you, Falcon.